For the past few weeks, I've been going over trivia from each season of the Clone Wars. It seems only right that I should also cover the story arcs we would have seen in the 7th season had the show not been cancelled. First up is Crystal Crisis on Utapau. You can actually watch this 4-episode arc on StarWars.com, albeit in rough animation form. Anakin and Obi-Wan would have been sent to Utapau to investigate the death of a Jedi Master there. They would have discovered that the Separatists had possession of a massive Kyber crystal, which would eventually be destroyed. These episodes would have been the first hint at the Death Star's use of Kyber crystals in its super laser. If you want to watch them, I've put the link to the episodes in the description. Next is the Bad Batch arc. Again, the story reel for all 4 episodes can be seen on StarWars.com, and the link is in the description. This arc would have introduced purposefully altered clone troopers called Clone Force 99, nicknamed the Bad Batch. They each had separate abilities that made them ideal for particularly difficult missions. Rex and the Bad Batch would have investigated a new algorithm the Separatists were using to successfully predict Republic strategies, which would have revealed the survival of Echo, who was previously thought dead. We also would have seen the return and death of Admiral Trench. The next arc is one you can't watch, at least not all of it, but you can read it. The novel Dark Disciple was going to be a massive 8-part story made up of episodes titled Lethal Alliance, The Mission, Conspirators, Dark Disciple, Saving Voss Parts 1 and 2, Traitor, and The Path. It would have been about Quinlan Voss going undercover to assassinate Count Dooku with the help of Asajj Ventress. I don't want to say much more about it to avoid spoilers because the book is quite good. If you want to grab it for free on Audible, there's a link to do that in the description as well. Son of Dathomir is a comic series that adapted 4 episodes about Darth Maul that was actually going to be part of Season 6, but then that season was cut short and released on Netflix, so I think talking about it here makes sense. It shows how Maul escaped the clutches of Darth Sidious, and it has some pretty cool connections with Star Wars Rebels. Now we're going to move on to some of the more obscure arcs. The ones that currently aren't available in any other format, they've just been talked about by Dave Filoni or other members of Lucasfilm. Many of these episodes were well into production, so we have a few rough animatics like the Crystal Crisis and the Bad Batch reels. I think it should be noted that Lucasfilm executives have stated that they are treating a lot of these untold stories as things that have happened, and many of them have even been referenced in some form in other content. The Bounty Hunter arc would have featured a team-up between Cad Bane and Boba Fett. Cad had a rivalry with Jango Fett, but never got to see who was best before he died. He starts grooming Boba so he can eventually learn the answer. The main plot would have been about rescuing a kidnapped child from Tusken Raiders. Cad would have received a new ship called the Justifier, and Bossk, Imbo, Aurra Sing, and some other hunters would have also made appearances. It looks like the arc would have ended with a shootout between Fett and Bane that would have resulted in Bane's possible death and shown the origin of the dent in Fett's helmet. Ahsoka's Walkabout would have shown us what Ahsoka's life was like outside of the Jedi Order. She would have had to adjust to being a normal person living in the underworld. She would have met a smuggler named Nix Okami on level 1313, and he would have been somewhat of a love interest. Ahsoka would have become a sort of vigilante and fighter for the less fortunate on Coruscant. The Kashyyyk arc would have shown why Yoda claimed to have good relationships with the Wookiees in Revenge of the Sith, and brought back the Bad Batch. Chewbacca would have had a major role, and some references to the holiday special even would have been made. I'm guessing about his family, considering his wife and son are both canon. We would learn that the Wookiees have the ability to summon giant tree beings that could be ridden into battle, but it would have been a sacred thing to them, and something they only do out of desperation. A Trandoshan would be leading the Separatist attack, and the Wookiees would be forced to burn part of the forest to get rid of their enemies, an act which makes sense strategically, but would have been very upsetting for the Wookiees. A Top Gun homage arc was planned to heavily feature Rex and R2-D2 together. The early episodes would have shown a rivalry between clone ground forces and pilots. R2 and Rex would have been stranded on Ryloth with a reprogrammed B-2 battle droid. That sounds like some inspiration for K2SO. The members of D-Squad would have made a reappearance as well. Going back to Ahsoka, an arc called Return to the Jedi would have had Ahsoka investigating the depths of Coruscant underneath the Jedi Temple and discovering a buried Sith shrine there. Sidious would have attempted to get into the Holocron Vault, but Ahsoka would have held him back on the other side of the door. The shrine has been mentioned in the book Tarkin, where it was visited by Sidious himself, and it was cited as at least partly responsible for clouding the minds of the Jedi. Another Ahsoka story would have been about Plo Koon taking her to the Jedi as a child, which can be briefly seen in the actual series. A kind and beautiful character would have shown up before Master Plo to take Ahsoka, but she would turn out to be an imposter that wanted to kidnap and sell young Force users. Plo would have arrived, and his character just looks scarier in general, so the whole motto would have been basically, don't judge a book by its cover. Of all the arcs I'm talking about today, the one I most wish we got to see is the Siege of Mandalore. Maul would have returned to the planet with his remaining forces. Bo-Katan would seek out Ahsoka for help, and Obi-Wan and Anakin would also join her. They would have been called away to rescue the Chancellor, as seen in Revenge of the Sith, but Anakin would have left behind Rex and some orange-painted members of the 501st to assist her. Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, and the clones would have captured Maul, who would then escape when Order 66 was activated. Rex would have removed his chip by this point, and he and Ahsoka would fake each other's deaths and go their separate ways. It would have explained why Rex wasn't in Episode 3, and shown why Ahsoka and Maul are familiar with each other in Star Wars Rebels. This story is very heavily referenced in the Ahsoka book. Little is known about this next arc, but Padme and Anakin would have returned to Mon Cala to meet with Lee Char and the Quarren about some political frustrations regarding Palpatine. And I saved probably the most controversial arc for last. The Yuuzhan Vong were going to appear. It would have been an alien abduction X-Files style story with a scout ship trying to assess the strength of the Republic. George Lucas would have changed the Vong so that they wouldn't have been cut off from the Force as they were in the books. I said before that Lucasfilm has been considering these arcs as canon. I have a feeling that this one probably is not, and here's why. When it was being developed, Star Wars Legends was not a thing. There were no plans for future movies, Clone Wars was pretty much it. So at the time, it absolutely made sense that they would want to tie the Vong into their storytelling to keep a cohesive universe. But when Disney bought Star Wars and reset the canon, the Yuuzhan Vong stories of the New Jedi Order books were wiped away. Of course, it's possible they could return at some point down the line, but I kinda doubt it. So this is the one arc of the bunch that I think, at least for now, probably didn't happen in canon. Clone Wars writer Brent Friedman has stated that all of Seasons 7 and 8 were written by the time of the show's cancellation. Looking back over these arcs, there are easily enough episodes for 2 seasons. The arcs that were officially released either on StarWars.com or in books or comics alone make up 22 episodes. So it's looking pretty likely there would have been not only a Season 7, but a Season 8 of Clone Wars as well. It's a shame the show was cancelled, but I think over time we are going to get these arcs fleshed out in some form or another, be it in Rebels, new books, or comics. Before I wrap up, I need to thank Reddit user Marvel Star Wars, who made an excellent Reddit post about all this, which I've also linked to in the description. It's something I've wanted to do a video on for a while, and he did a lot of the heavy lifting, and even said I could use it without crediting him, but he's been making very helpful posts on the Star Wars subreddit, so go give him an upvote if you have a chance. But that's it for today. If you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel to keep up with Star Wars news and lore videos every single day, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.